Hello everyone, welcome to Strategic Management Unit number 9. In Unit number 9, we're going to talk about cooperative strategies. In cooperative strategy, we are dealing mostly in how companies look for other companies to strengthen their positions. So in this case, we're going to talk about that. So first of all, like I said, there's companies that somehow need another one. And that doesn't mean that they're going to acquire them all the time. That means that they're going to be working together either for short term, which could be a project, or it could be in a much longer term in order to really develop a market. Again, it could be very different objectives. Here, for example, in this video, I posted this alliance between the Samsung and Renault, which is a very interesting one. Well, Renault and Nissan as well. So here we see how for Renault to enter the Korean market is difficult already because there's already other brands, there is already the distribution channels, manufacturing. So in this case, we look at both companies, Samsung Motors and Renault. So Renault and Nissan want to enter the market. For Nissan, it's not easy to enter into the market to the nationalist approaches of the people. People do not consider buying Japanese cars. And when they think of French cars, they might be expensive, or imported cars, or they think that perhaps the tools may not be available. So here is when it comes to partnership and becomes a very interesting project, which means Samsung Motors do not have the knowledge and expertise of Nissan and Renault in terms of car manufacturing, in terms of designing, in terms of many things like getting the suppliers, for example. So we have a common goal. Me as Samsung, I want to have the technical knowledge. You as Renault and Nissan, you want to enter the market. So I have the market as Samsung. I have already the name, I have distribution channels, I have all the resources locally to do whatever I want. But you don't have access to the market. So I give you the access to the market, but in exchange, you give me the technical knowledge. And that way we can work together. So again, the shared objective is to conquer a certain market, which in this case is the Korean market. Okay, very good. So in this case, we're going to talk about the different types of cooperative strategy. Okay, well, let's talk about them. Okay, so first of all, we have a joint venture. Pretty much we have companies working together. They come for a specific reason. They share their resources and capabilities. Here I give you the example of, for example, Barnes & Noble Cafe and Starbucks. So here I have the resources of the cafe, the locations, but in order to enhance my services, I could offer books as well. So in this case, books and other materials and content. So that's when Barnes and Nobles have the access. For me as a coffee company, I don't want to deal already with getting supplies of books and dealing with all that things that I don't know. I will have to start a completely new business in order to offer that, right? So why should I do that when I can just do a joint venture with this company, right? With Barnes & Noble. So for the time we work together, you put your products in there, you get the benefit because you sell a lot. I have a lot of locations in terms of Starbucks. And at the same time, like I said, customers benefit. You benefit, I benefit. I sell more coffee, you sell more books. Everybody's happy. It's a win-win situation, okay? Now, in this case, we can talk about equity, strategic alliance, and non-equity. So that means that either we put some money into that or not. Okay, so that means in equity, that means I will really put some capital into it, and then you put some capital as well, and then we work together. In the non-equity one, that means that we just put the resources, and it can just pull my resources whenever I want. So in this case, for example, could be the books, right? So I don't put much more money into that. I just put my products in there, you display them, and that's it, but nothing more. If we talk about equity, it's like together they build a new cafe, then that will work in that way. Okay. So, why firms develop strategic alliances? Like I said, in this case, we can have access to more resources, or we can have expertise that the other company has. In this case, for example, when I was talking about the books, I don't have access to distribution of books, publishers, etc. So in this case, I can get that benefit out of them. And in this case, like, they can align my interest. My interest is to retain my consumers for a longer period of time consuming coffee, and for them, they want to sell more products. So there, our interests come together. So of course, this creates new sources of revenue, right? For us, both companies, we can grow more because, of course, consumers would rather go to these coffee shops that have these comprehensive services as compared to other coffees that do not have that kind of service, right? So that works very well. So of course, we respond to market opportunities. In this case, consumers may want to, like I said, have cafes that have better experiences. In this case, it's not a technological change because in this case it's not applicable, but it could be that, for example, in the case of, we're going to talk about some other cases here. For example, IBM and Lenovo, maybe people is looking for products that are more advanced, and maybe I don't have the access to new technology, new designs, or for me to redevelop it, it takes me a long time. This is the case, for example, here there was a strategic alliance that it was a very big failure, and that is the case of Nokia and Android. In a very early stage, Nokia was developing their phones, and they were a major, well, they were the largest phone producer and with the largest market share. And they were able, they had two options at that time for smartphones in order to compete with the new iPhone. So was, should we develop our own system, operational system, our OS, or we create a strategic alliance with Android? So in the case of Samsung, Samsung did it. Samsung said, we don't want to, I mean, the technological change is too much in terms of the innovation that Samsung had. So if we want to be on pair with Apple, we have to develop a new system, and that takes us a lot of time. We need to invest resources, capabilities, etc. And in the end, the system may not be superior than the iOS. So Samsung says, okay, Google, Android, come with me. Let's get on board and develop your phones. But that was not the case of Nokia. Nokia said, we're going to develop our own one. We are not going to depend on another company, and so on. The same as Microsoft. Microsoft also developed their own operational system, also was very bad. It was the overall, the display of it was very poor, and the functions and etc. But anyways, so a failed strategic alliance, they deny it. Nokia was not able to cope with the technological change. Their system kept on failing. The first prototype of it really failed, and they insisted. They still could have again engaged with Android, but still they deny it. And what was the price to pay? Losing completely the market of phones. They lost it. Nowadays, Nokia is still there. Fair enough. They tried to do a comeback. They did an alliance with Microsoft because Microsoft still could push it. But in the end, now Nokia is just about infrastructure for networks, and that's all. No more phones. The phone's still something that is not there. Okay. So again, in this case, for example, we can talk about different alliances. Here, for example, this is a very interesting alliance, strategic alliances in the airline industry, and we see it mostly because here, for example, a strategic alliance in that area, when it's a slow market, we can gain access to restricted markets. So in this case, for example, airlines cannot just fly anywhere that they want. So in this case, let's look, for example, here. Let's say, for example, Korean Air. Korean Air wants to fly to Europe. So they can fly to maybe to Paris. But if you want to fly to Lyon or smaller cities in France, you cannot do it. So why? Because I cannot establish operations in there. I need permissions from the French government. It is very complex. So what do? If I want to expand my market, then I do an alliance, maybe here with Air France and KLM. No, they are going to handle my portion of the European market, and I'm going to handle their portion of the Asian market. So this is how, for example, these strategic alliances work very, very well, because in the end, they help each other, they cover a larger market, and they benefit each other. Yeah, some days my passengers will, the revenue of my passengers will go to you because they flew the European market, but some days will go to me because they fly the Asian market. And that works very well. So again, in this case, strategic alliances help to minimize the competition efforts, because in the end, when we have superior products, when we have superior alliances, the competitors start to go down. We have a competitive advantage over other companies. So again, we can have access to resources and take advantage of opportunities. Like I said, in this case, I can take opportunities of different markets in Europe or Asia, or I can take opportunities of consumers wanting better experiences. Okay, very good. So in this case, like I said, we have different market types. So in this case, for example, like I said, we have in the fast cycle. In the fast cycle, I don't have the time to develop, maybe like in this case, a computer. I don't have the time to develop the technology of computers, processors, etc. So what do? I need to come up with a new product right here, right now. If I don't do it as quickly as possible, then the market opportunity is gone. So do a strategic alliance with someone already that has it. Here, for example, Lenovo. Well, Lenovo actually acquired a lot of IBM divisions. First started as an alliance, but then it ended up in acquisitions. But anyways, in this case, they come together. Why? Because you already have the expertise in computing, and I have the access to the Chinese market for Lenovo. So in this case, I mean, we quickly develop those products, and then we quickly put them on the market. And then we have here, for example, the standard cycle. Here we have, for example, Lotte and Nestle. How they come with strategic alliances, meaning for Nestle, I need you to distribute my products, because I cannot just sell Nestle on the street, right? So I need someone that distribute it. I need to reach the market. So in this case, we work together in that sense, that you distribute my products. Okay. So like I said, in this case, we're just looking always to grow and improve the fair performance, in this case, in different markets. Okay. So in this case, it's just about how we have, how we share the resources, capabilities, and then become complementary. So that means that in this case, you can complement my production, or which in this case, well, let's go to this one. We go to vertical or horizontal, okay? Meaning that, for example, I need you as a complement for my product. In this case, for example, Samsung and Qualcomm. For me to develop the phone, I need the microprocessor. So in this case, we come together, and then we are vertically, somehow cooperating vertically, right? It is a chain that comes together, and we form it together. But in the other one, we have horizontal. So that means we are not integrate, because for me, for example, here in Disney Plus, for Disney Plus, I don't need SKKTLU to develop my content. I don't need you to integrate you in that sense. But I need you to distribute it. So in this case, for example, Disney Plus is coming in agreements with SK in Korea to offer their services. So two companies operating, I don't need you to develop, but I need you to distribute it. So they work at the same time, separately but together, as compared to the other one that is vertical. Like I said, it becomes part of it. Okay. So in this case, when we have these partnerships, there's always competitive response. How the competition is going to respond. And here I go back to my example of the airlines. The first alliance was Star Alliance, right? Many of the airlines came together and they realized it was a very strong and very powerful tool. What happens after that came SkyTeam as a competition, because maybe here, for example, there were some airlines that could compete with this one, some Europeans one. Let's say, for example, Air France and Swiss are competitors, so they couldn't be on the same alliance. So they excluded them, so they created their own alliance. And of course, there were some other companies that say, well, we also need those agreements. Otherwise, you see, for example, here, one European, and a couple of European ones, Lufthansa, big ones, right? So we see an American, and then we see, well, at that time, an American, right? So in this case, we see how they had a response for that action. So again, in this case, we do this business level cooperation strategy also for uncertainty reducing. That means that we don't know how the market is going to move. We don't know how the macro environmental forces are going to work. So in this case, also we come into alliance to mitigate those risks. So we use that also as that. Now, when we have this business level cooperation, we have to be very careful because there's also unethical actions, corporate actions, like for example collusion. We can say that is explicit collusion, that we literally agree for something to happen, or tacit collusion, that is like, I am gonna set up this price, and somehow I didn't tell you that you to set that price, but you're gonna do it. So let's look at the example here of Sainsbury and Asda. So in this case, Sainsbury and Asda, supermarkets, they had an explicit collusion with the dairy products. So they agree together, shake hands, and we will only buy dairy products at a certain price. So in this case, they were forcing the dairy industry to sell them at the prices that they wanted. This is illegal because in the end, what happens to the dairy industry is that they have to sell their products for much lesser than they can create some profit. So this case was very sound, and in the end, I mean, you have to solve it legally because it's an explicit collusion. They shake hands and say, we only will buy we only buy dairy products at a certain price, and we live in a free market. So the UK is a free market, so it shouldn't happen that, like I said, they explicitly do it. And then tacit, like I said, is like, well, I'll buy at this price, and the other company says, I also buy at this price. So in this case, it's indirect, but in the end, still aiming to achieve a certain, certain benefit, not in an ethical way. Okay. So anyways, in this case, like I said, we had to think of vertical alliances, horizontal alliances. Now we have another corporate level strategy in terms of cooperation. When we have a brand or a product and we want to create diversification of markets, we may use, for example, here franchising. Okay, so in this case, the way I cooperate is I cooperate with individuals, private individuals, that they want to have a business, they want to develop a business. I want to grow my brand and expansion very quickly. So let's say here, for example, Subway. I want to have Subways all over Korea very quickly, but for me to invest in that market so quickly, I need a lot of capital that I don't have. So what do? In this case, I cooperate with privates, and then privates come and say, I want to operate one Subway, so I will buy the franchise rights, I will pay you, I have your name, I have the benefit that I can use Subway, your methods, your logos, your marketing, But in the end, it's my business. If I create profit or not, it's up to me. If my store is functional or not, it's up to me. But I will still pay you for the rights of using your brand and etc. So again, it's a corporation. It's a different type of corporation. Okay. So we also have cross-border strategic alliances. Like I already mentioned the case of Samsung and Renault and how they did it. Here, for example, we had the case also of eBay and Gmarket. Gmarket already was a company of e-commerce that already was working very well within the Korean market. eBay wants to come in. Not easy because the market is already developed. They already have the distribution channels. So what do? They acquire them. And this case, again, is cross-border. eBay was an American brand. Gmarket was a Korean brand. Come together and then, of course, try to dominate the market in a new market which already was established by Gmarket. Okay, so in this case, like I said, when we do this kind of alliances, we need to understand what are the risks. Okay, in these terms, what are the existing risks in the market by not doing an alliance? Let's say, for example, like I said, technologically, we understand that if we don't do an alliance, we may not be able to come up with new products very quickly. So by doing the alliance, then we come together, we understand and assess how much is the risk of coming together, what can I lose if we do a strategic alliance, and then of course I come up with an assessment that I can create value, and that's good. Okay, so like I said, in this case, when we are calculating the risk benefit, mostly we do two primary approaches, which is, first of all, I come with a cooperative strategy because I want to minimize my cost. Maybe, like I said, I want to use your facilities to operate at a much lower price. I think the last week I mentioned it, for example, for the case of Frito-Lay and Lotte. Frito-Lay and Lotte come together because in the end, Frito-Lay says, I want to sell my products in Korea, but you already have the manufacturing facilities. So in this case, I can minimize my cost, and I'm just gonna get the benefit of very little benefit of profit by selling my product in Korea under Doritos name, but in the little is made by Lotte. So in this case, I minimize my production cost by using your facilities. That means also that I make less profit. So again, I want to enter the market, but I'm gonna use you. You want to use my name. So again, it's a win-win situation in terms of cost. Or we can think of opportunity maximization. Okay, so in this case, for example, here I have the passenger vehicle market in India and how it's growing. So I see an opportunity there, right? Maybe for example, we're talking about electric vehicles. So in this case, for example, maybe India is growing in terms of electric vehicle purchasing, and I want to enter that market, but I don't have the manufacturing ability to catch up with that. No, maybe I'm Tesla and I cannot do it. So maybe I need a strategic alliance with a company that perhaps can produce at a much higher rate. Okay, very good. So in a nutshell, strategic alliances are cooperations with other companies to achieve a goal, and that works well for everyone. It should be always a win-win situation as long as we assess the risks and we assess the benefits of it. Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Then I'll see you next week.